You're listening to the Motor Mouth.
Hello.
You guys are the best. Man, you guys are insane, hilarious, and the best stuff I've ever seen.
That's right, Chris and Ray.
Motor Mouth.
Did I win anything? I got through. I can't believe I got through.
Well, I'm glad you guys are around because I didn't even know you existed.
Hey, how are you, Motor Mouth?
This is one of those days, nothing to do, so I figure why not spend it with a couple of nobodies. Motor Mouth.
You also have my picture up on the webpage.
Boy, you taught me something about that car.
Why must you ask such difficult questions?
Motor Mouth.
I don't know too much about motors.
Do I come running into your show?
We love you guys that have these shows.
Our trained staff of 2 will help.
Is this that jerky car show that I listen to? Oh, you the distributor, Cap? Why on the port condenser?
Quite frankly, there are better things to do with your time.
Trying to dial the phone with transmission fluid all over me. So I finally got a chance to listen to you guys streaming. I'm in a good mood. I'm happy.
Yeah, I want to know what the is wrong with my car.
I haven't even called my own mechanic back, but why don't I ask you?
But you guys are pretty special guys.
Motor Mouth.
Must be a motorcycle thing, because I'm not familiar with that.
Yes.
Let's just think right now, Murphy's Law, what's going to go wrong? Is the board going to explode? Is the mic going to drop? Is my phone going to drop? I love live radio. I'm just having some fun with you guys.
There are answers, sometimes correct ones, and we may have them.
Motormouth Radio, 90.3 FM, WHPC.
Motor Mouth.
This is Motormouth Radio, your one-hour automotive talk show. And now, here are your Motormouths, Chris Switzer and Ray Guarino.
Alrighty, you requested good radio. You wanted good radio. You demanded good radio. But you got this instead. It's Motormouth Radio, your one-hour automotive talk show, right here on Long Island. I'm Chris Switzer. And of course, here's a man who's going to take a trip to Times Square and bring along some body paint. Let him tell you all about it from behind the shop bench. You know him. He's Ray Guarino. How are you, my brother?
Good. And I don't bring the paint. I just collect the percentage.
No, you don't. You are an artiste at heart.
In for my cut.
You are an artiste.
Yeah.
No, that's what they are. They're artists.
But
right?
not a working one, that's for sure.
No, that's why we're here. Giving you the best automotive information on the face of the earth. Why? Because this is the only automotive talk show far and wide. There are others, but this is better. Right?
Yes.
Every Thursday and Sunday, noon to 1 on this fine radio station. Also on vaughanlive.tv/motormouthradio, where you can see my finger. And
it's a monumentous day today, Chris.
Why is that, Ray?
Because dating the show, as we usually don't do, but today's...
You're taking it to the movies and you're going to take it to the zoo.
Yeah, the 20th of August. Today's National Radio Day.
Oh, really? There's a day for this?
And thanks to Joe D for this news piece.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Each year on this day, National Radio Day celebrates the great invention of the radio.
Ah, Marconi at his best, yes.
In the late 19th century, it became clear that wireless communication was possible.
Well, can you imagine doing this show in dots and dashes?
Yeah, well, you'd have to. Your fingers would be well worn.
Yes.
It was in the late 1920s when the first broadcast stations began airing programs.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
These first programs were those of news and world events, of course, because what else were they going to talk about? Corn crops and dust bowls and stuff like that. I don't know.
Survivalry.
A couple of fun facts. Radio ownership grew from 2 out of 5 homes in 1931 to 4 out of 5 homes in 1938.
Wow.
So that's a big jump.
Which answers the question, hey, what's that wooden box in the middle of your living room?
I think that was that was the one thing you didn't have to ask. Everybody knew what that was. According to the FCC statistics, of course, it's the Federal Communications Conundrum.
Commission. Yeah, friendly cousin Charlie to those on the CB world.
At the end of 2012, there were more than 15,000 licensed broadcast radio stations in the U.S.
Wow.
This being one of them.
The first one was KDKA. Yes, Pittsburgh.
So there we go.
Very nice.
We celebrate our radio heritage today.
Well, that's good. Radio Day here at Motormouth Radio.
Yes.
So if you're listening to your radio and you, by chance, have a telephone, which is not telephone day, but if you have a telephone, call us. 516-572-7440. There's your phone number. Ray is taking out an ice cream sandwich.
I wish.
What is that?
Tissue.
Oh, it's tissue. Tissue? I don't even know you.
I'm going to blow my nose, but I'll wait till we go to break.
Oh, okay. So you're going to sound like Elmer Fudd for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, well,
go ahead, blow your nose now. You're a star. Come on, you're a big star. Do you have anything hanging from there? No, not really.
Yeah, no, we're all in good shape.
So other than the cold you have, how was the week that was?
It was. Everything was very good. Very busy as usual. Starting with last week after the show, we hung out in the parking lot long enough to see it rain.
Yeah, I meant to ask you, how was the trip home with the GTO? Because that's what you were driving.
Yeah, it was absolutely flawless.
It was good.
I did choose...
You drove at a steady 7 miles an hour, I'm assuming.
Oh, hell no.
No?
I can't drive that car at 7 miles an hour because it starts to boxcar on me. And it doesn't like going slow. It likes going fast. If you put a 0 after that, the car is in its wheelhouse.
I'm sure it is.
It is just phenomenal. But
I've had a little experience with it, and I concur completely.
Yeah, I haven't had you out on a highway in it. You have to.
No.
Joe D's got a lot of seat time.
I'm sure he does.
This year already because we've been cruising to the stuff out by him. But yeah, highway manners are very, very nice. I chose not to take the highway home,
right?
Which is it's not a long stretch, but still, I was afraid. My inner. I don't care. I'm not worried about driving the car. I'll drive it anywhere, and I didn't mind driving it in the rain. It's got a roof. It's got wipers. Who cares?
Right.
I was just afraid that some knucklehead in front of me would do something stupid to make me have to brake fast, and so I just picture that guy coming around behind me, hitting me, spinning me around. I just picture that all things happening because not my fault.
Dude, I totally dig it.
So
I understand.
I took the secondary route home, which was just the secondary roads.
You listen to that little voice in your gut.
I always do.
Good for you.
I've done that for years. I learned that for reasons we don't have to get into. But
you didn't listen to that voice in your gut when I said, hey, why don't you do the show permanently?
No. If I'm going home somewhere, I'm going to go home or go somewhere and something, to have a crossroad. I can go right, left, or whatever. And something in my head even ahead of time may picture that certain route, or just tell me, I go right. Well, I'll do it.
I do it too.
I follow that road.
My wife even says, "You heard the voice again, right?" Because you usually don't make a turn here or whatever.
We're definitely a superstitious bunch.
Oh yeah.
So I played to that superstition and I went home the other way. And the thing that I was afraid of, not only that with the other cars, was the tires on the rear of my car. The front tires are very, very high level, high rated tires for wet weather and stuff like that. But the rear is not so much. They're a dual purpose street strip tire. And I really didn't know what they were going to do.
More strip than street, I would think.
There's four grooves and actually some sipes.
Yeah,
for the rain.
Yeah, some token of a snipe.
Yeah. Well, sipe, not a snipe.
Snipe.
And I did drive the car in the rain previously, but still, I said, I actually tried. I was playing around with it a little bit when I was on the road and there was no one really near me. I tried different levels of braking and acceleration to try to see if the car would lose control.
And people thought you were drunk.
Well, if they were near me, yeah, but there was. I waited till there was no one near me.
Got it.
And it didn't do that. It absolutely did. It behaved itself.
Good.
So I was happy.
Good.
So that was the big report from there.
Fantastic. I was glad because I was kind of concerned when it was.
Thanks for the call. Yeah, that was nice. It's always good to hear from you.
It was a torrential downpour, and I'm like, I wonder how Ray did.
Yeah.
I wonder if he made it. Well, I'll find out Thursday.
Right. Well, yeah. Or not. I was out with Kevin, Kilowatt Kevin. We went to the East Rockaway Cruise Night this past Monday to see Dennis and the Goatman, and Mary had a little jam. The abbreviated version of his band was playing, so we want to see them, support them.
Right.
And they did a great job, as always. But
yes.
Kevin laid out to me, and actually Frank from Centurion Cruises, he came down and hung out with us.
Cool.
As did Jeff, the glass guy.
The Grand Poobah.
Yeah, we had a good time in the park.
Did he bring the blue hat with the horns on either side?
It's affixed, yeah.
Oh, good.
It's a fixture.
Good.
If he doesn't have it, there's a hologram. A holographic display that follows him. Yeah. But Kevin had said to me, he has an issue with his car, and that's why he didn't take it out that night. Now, it's a 68 GTO convertible.
Right.
And it doesn't get a lot of miles every year.
No.
But it's well cared for. It's garage kept. It's a four-wheel.
It's because it doesn't have a clock in the dash.
Or a volt gauge.
Kevin
K. Harris, he's as we speak, he's driving down to North Carolina.
Oh, okay, good.
South Carolina. One of the Carolinas.
We could talk badly about him then.
Yeah. But he told me that he had the car out the day before, and he noticed, again, like I said, four-wheel drum brakes. He heard a clicking noise from what he believes to be the back of the car. It's when he starts off, it's definitely rotational in nature.
So the click gets quicker as the car moves faster.
Yeah, you can hear it with the rotation of the wheels or something.
Right.
And doesn't happen all the time, and it's not repeatable. Like to say, it doesn't happen from 0 to 20, or it doesn't happen from 10 to 20, or it doesn't happen from... it's not like you can't make it happen all the time. Right. It happens indiscriminately. And he took the wheels off. He took the drums off the back to look to see what it could be. And I said, Kev, the only thing I'm thinking, and I said, I'm going to throw you out a long shot here because it's not how this component usually manifests itself.
I have a theory in my head. Let me see if the theory is the same as yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, go on. What do you think?
I think it's a drive shaft.
Okay.
Drive shaft, universal.
Well, I asked him, was universal, was it greased? Was it lubricated?
Right.
He said, no, he did not check that. I said, the only other thing that I know, the biggest thing I know rotational like that, but it doesn't usually click, it usually squeaks, is an axle bearing.
Wheel bearing, yeah.
Not a wheel bearing, an axle bearing. There was no wheel bearing in the back of the car.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Then we're talking about the same thing, just calling it two different things.
Bearing that's on the axle, in the axle flange. But
yes.
It usually squeaks. So
something
I don't know.
That needs to be pressed out, right? Do you have to press those out or press those off the axle itself?
Yeah, right.
The
Different
axle comes out
different
with
ways.
okay.
Right.
Does that... When you pull the axle out of that, does the bearing stay with the axle, or does it stay in the housing itself?
It stays on the axle. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then the race is inside, and you pull it out. So I throw it out to other people to see what people, if anybody else has had a condition like that they may want to shed some light and share with the with the Motormouth Radio audience. That would be
cool.
great.
Very cool. You know the number, 516-572-7440, the Aaron Squeak in a 68 GTO convertible.
And in that light, I want to say too, because my wife and I were talking about this. A lot of people we find from talking to people, they don't listen live. They're not watching us on Vaughn Live TV. They're not listening live.
That's right. They're smart.
They're not listening on the internet even. They catch the show after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe the reason a lot of people don't call because they feel like, well, the topic is over, said and done with, and we're done. It's not.
Right.
You know what? Whenever you hear this show, if you want to call us or email us and talk about something that you heard on the show, please do it, because we'll reopen the topic at any time.
Very true. We're very pliable here. This is called production on the fly. If you have good information, it's always good to call us up, no matter what we are talking about. Good information is still good information, so that's definitely a tip.
And sometimes the problem isn't rectified. So when someone calls in a week, 2 or 3 later and says, hey, you were talking about so-and-so, it might just light that candle again and say, hey, you know what? I forgot about that. What is it?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we welcome that stuff.
I laugh. You talk about errant noises. I was getting gas yesterday and just sitting there leaning up against the car, pumping gas into it, and a Honda Civic pulled up across from me at the pump station. And the car sounded like it had a small coffee can half filled with small little tiny washers tumbling around in it.
Oh, wow.
Ding, 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 ding. And he pulled up, and the car, the noise kept going even as the car was put into park. I didn't hear anything different about it. Yeah.
Huh.
It was the strangest noise I've ever heard coming out of a car before. And you know as well as I do, Ray, we're very good at picking out noises from cars that are 6 feet away. You pretty much can tell what's going on just by the noise. I would say 9 out of 10 times. This noise completely stumped me.
Mm-hmm.
Woman got out of the car, and as she was walking past me to go pay for her gas, I just not stopped her, but I said, do you know what that noise is? And she looked me dead in the face and went, I don't know.
No,
and
what?
Kept going. She didn't even want to know.
No.
She didn't even want to know. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, green Civic, got to remember, stay away from that one on the road.
Those are the people that repair the car when it breaks.
When it breaks, yeah. Well, this thing sounded like it was on the verge of falling apart. I never heard a noise like this. It was a tumbling coffee can with small little washers in it.
Was the car still running?
It was still running, and the noise was still happening.
Okay.
When she shut it off, the noise obviously when it ceased as well.
So it was engine related. There was something. It was probably a pulley or a pulley on one of the accessories.
Totally stumped my band.
Yeah, that's what I would guess. That's exactly what I would look first.
One out. Could not figure
but you know what? Not my car. I don't care.
Well, of course. That's
Pump
what you
gas.
have to do.
See you later.
516-572-7440. Is that thing blinking?
Yes,
or
it was.
It was blinking. Let's go to the phones. No, it wasn't blinking. Ray was wrong.
Blinking, and nod.
516-572-7440. Let's take a quick break right here at Motormouth Radio. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about, what's that? Talk a little bit about the British show, Top Gear. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard they had a special. It was a Jeremy Clarkson special.
Mm-hmm. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back right here at Motormouth Radio. Plus your calls, 516-572-7440, and the Motormouth Radio Honor Group of the Hour, Drivers with Dirty Dashboards. Been seeing a lot of this lately. What's the matter with you people? You got potatoes growing on this thing? Holy moly, it's like you're looking over a cornfield for crying out loud. You want a view and you don't want to see past the dash? Well, before you clean that stuff up, pat yourself on the back because you're part of the Motormouth Radio Honest of the Hour, where we have tons more information as I run the board and speak at the same time. It's a talent, it's a gift, believe me. It's a blessing and a curse.
The Motormouths will be right back with your car questions. Give us a call at 516-572-7440.
WHPC 90.3, the radio voice of Nassau Community College, is looking for individuals, businesses, charities, or organizations in our local and global community that would like to donate to support our radio station. Whether you listen locally or online, here is how it works. Go to our webpage at ncc.edu/WHPC and click Donate Now. Or if you prefer, you can send a check to WHPC Radio, 1 Education Drive, Garden City, New York, 11530. Make check payable to the NCC Foundation. In the memo of your check, write WHPC Donate Now. Any contributions will help defray our operating costs, and it's tax deductible. This message was brought to you by the radio voice of Nassau Community College, streaming online at ncc.edu/WHPC.
Excuse me.
Motormouth Radio.
Alrighty. Phone line is open, 516-572-7440 on this beautiful day. This is a cool six-pack of Motormouth Radio right here. Icy cool in the sun radio. That's Ray Guarino. I'm Chris Switzer. Talking to ourselves today and taking your call. 516-572-7440. Performance Motorsports Network, we're there. iHeartRadio, we're there too. Podcast, go to the site and check, motormouthradio.com. A crummy blog, heck, check that off too. Go to the site, motormouthradio.com. Back to the business of talking about cars right here on your fine, upstanding radio station. What are you doing?
I'm doodling.
Why are you doodling?
Because I got nothing else to do.
Oh, okay.
So what do you want to talk about?
So, I was reading an article today about Jeff Bezos, Amazon's Jeff Bezos. He says that the former Top Gear crew, he actually acquired them. And
what do you mean acquired them?
He acquired the team. They're going to put together 12 episodes in 2016, and they've acquired the team for $250 million.
Nice.
Let me put my so there's a chance, Ray, that you know we can pay off our mortgages with this dopey show.
I don't see how you connect the two at all.
Come on,
because they're not giving us a dime. They're paying them.
Money makes money. It all
right, but it's not in our pocket.
Well, anyway, they expected the show to go from BBC to Netflix. That didn't happen.
Oh, wow.
But Jeff Bezos intercepted and got it on Amazon Prime, and the show will be premiering in 2016.
A lot of people. Yeah. I'm sorry. A lot of people use those formats. To watch.
Yeah.
I don't, so I don't know how.
Yeah, we're still like almost terrestrial in our way. It requires a cable or an antenna, but we're still fairly terrestrial. Yeah, we're not computer entertainment savvy yet.
No, it's not our generation.
Yeah. Well, the show is the $250 bought Jeff Bezos 3 seasons, 12 episodes each. So we're going to be looking forward to that. I don't know what the show is going to be called, but
right.
Yeah, because we're going to be looking forward to that. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to the fun. Let's say hi. You're on with the Motormouths.
Hey, who's this, Ray?
Yes, it is.
It's Rich Plowmer.
What's up, Rich?
How are you, Rich?
How you doing?
Doing well. What's
Ray
going on?
And Chris.
Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, how you doing? I was listening to the 68 GTO clicking sound.
Yes.
And I have my theory.
Throw it out there.
I'm guessing it's a posi rear.
It is not. It's an open rear.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that blows me right out of the water.
Sorry. Well, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? Spider gears?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That was something in the gears. I remember years ago, probably back in the 60s somewhere, because it was a posi rear. Somebody was having this, and of course it was tough to duplicate because when you were making a turn or something, And it was because, the cars, doing lots of hole shots, weakened it up and whatever.
Yeah.
So, but it's not a posi rear. Huh?
No, and that's the thing. Well, first of all, Kevin's car is well taken care of. He doesn't do hole shots or burnouts in the car. He really babies it. And I asked him, I said, Kev, when was the last time you serviced the rear? And he says, I haven't, like everybody else says. So he's had the car, going on 20 years, and he's never. I said, you know what? Drop the cover. Let's take a look at the oil. Let's see if there's any metal fragments. Let's see if there's any telltale signs of what's going on in there. But right now he took a little vacation, so we're not going to know for at least another week. But,
okay.
So it's one of those weird anomalies.
And it's a GTO without a posi?
Yeah. Now I don't know. The rear end could have been changed because the previous owner grenaded it. I don't know. I don't know how that rear got in there and if it's the original or not. I don't know.
Okay.
So, but that's
that was my theory, but. Somewhere with the posi.
Gotcha. No, that's that was definitely an avenue we pursued, and I should have mentioned that. But yeah. Well, like I said, the car doesn't get driven a lot, so things kind of atrophy and take weird forms when they don't get used. I've seen that happen with other cars. If that was a modern front-wheel drive car, of course, the first thing you'd say is it's a CV joint because they do click before they fail.
Well, the joints. Yeah, well, even the U joint at the right at the axle there.
Right.
That would make a clicking sound also,
right?
If it was going bad. So, but
how's that Caddy, Rich? Tell us give us the Caddy update.
My Caddy.
Yeah, you got a Cadillac? Nice.
2008 CTS. I like the car. The car, it's quick. It's got the direct injection engine, so it's the 300 and something horsepower. It handles very nice. It's quiet. It's smooth. Let's see. What's the seatbelt? I'm sorry, the airbag light came on. So I'm like, oh, shoot, okay, what's going on with this? And I Googled it, and it turns out the wiring is under the seats. So
where you spilled that milkshake.
What's that?
Where you spilled the milkshake.
Yeah, no, nothing got spilled. But I called a buddy of mine. He's a mechanic at a Ford dealer, and he said when they check it, they're very sensitive to resistance. So you got to check the ohms. If you're off by a hair, he says, you may get the light.
Wow.
So he said, sometimes the fix, Ford's manual says dielectric grease on the the plug. So
that actually makes sense because as two connectors are plugged together, there's a mechanical connection, and as age sets in and humidity and temperature changes, there's a certain amount of corrosion and growth that happens on those connectors, which changes resistance.
We like to call it schmutz
or schming.
Yeah.
Well, what I did was it doesn't tell you, the light doesn't tell, and it didn't throw a code. So the light, or at least not a regular code, an OBD code. So I said, let me see. I reached my hand over and I went to open there's a little flap that opens up like a fabric bag under the seat where all the wiring connections are. And just as I did that, the light went out. I said, okay, I must have just touched it enough to make that connection at the plug.
Right.
So that's it. Light went out, and I'm
Rich,
okay.
you have just cemented our theory that sometimes you could fix something just by messing with it.
That's just, I touched it. All I did was touch the darn thing. So I must have touched the right plug just enough to move it and fix the little, bad connection.
Rich, can you just imagine if you would have taken the car and brought it over to Cadillac?
Well, $500 later.
Yeah.
And then them saying, well, we can't find the problem.
We've replaced your module, replaced your airbag.
Yeah. So, if they replace the airbag, there's $1,000 right there for an airbag.
Oh, sure.
So,
absolutely.
So that was a very simple fix. And, of course, I love the Internet as far as car repairs now, because you can find everything.
Yes, you can.
You just have to know what's real and what's not real.
Right. That's true.
Dissemination of information is the hardest part. The amount of information is staggering. Disseminating it is where you still have to know a little something.
You still have to be crafty, yes.
Right. Yeah, I told you I had changed the struts on my Envoy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew how to do it, but I said, let me just look. And I saw there were like 2 or 3 YouTube videos. They were slightly different. I think I had told you that. And but then when I did it, I said, wait a second, you don't have to take this apart. You don't have to take that apart. So I said, I'm going to make my own YouTube video and show these other 2 guys how you can save yourself about. half hour's worth of work. They took things apart that wasn't necessary.
Yeah. I found that even in factory service manuals, or in motor manuals, I found procedures that, I read it first and say, hey, wait a minute. You just know because you've been in there, you've done things before, and you don't have to take all that out to do this. And, and then you just make your own procedure. But for the people who don't know, it's better than nothing. It really is.
Well, I made the mistake of I blindly followed the procedures I saw on the video. I said, okay, I'll just do it that way. And then after I did the first one, when I went to do the other side, after putting the one side back together, I said, wait a second, I don't have to take that apart. Two things. The upper A-frame, they had you disconnecting that. It wasn't necessary.
Wow.
And they had a link. I don't know which one it was, but they had you taking that off. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to take that apart either.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I blindly followed, it's like blindly following the repair manual.
Right.
And then after you do it, realizing, wait a second, you didn't have to do this.
You didn't have to disconnect the negative terminal on the battery.
That's right.
It's always starting. Every procedure in any manual will start off that way. You have to take it off the negative. Why? I don't want to.
Yes.
Leave it on.
Yes.
I don't feel like changing the presets on my radio.
There you go. Anyway, but otherwise, I love the car. It's a really nice car. And again, little things happen. I had a little puddle on the floor, a water puddle on the floor.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, Rich, was there anything that you don't like about the car? Or is there anything that
I don't like about
kind of
the
rubs
car?
you about it? And the puddle on the floor would probably rub you about it.
Yeah, that turned out to be the sunroof drains. The drains get clogged.
Yes, they do.
And they back up and it comes into the car.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, how am I going to clear this? And, of course, I found it on some Cadillac website. And
a pipe cleaner, right?
What's that?
A pipe cleaner.
Well, you have to go way down. You have to go 3 feet. The water actually comes out behind the front wheel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it
goes all the way down into the fender. So what I did was somebody said use weed whacker line.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that works.
So which I have a weed whacker. I cut myself a nice 4-foot long piece. I fished it down there, up and down. I flooded it with water, and sure enough, that fixed it.
Yeah. Actually, my daughter's Dodge Stratus, when she first got it, had a similar problem. On the right side, she was getting water in the interior. I opened the sunroof, and of course, the car had been parked under trees. I used what's called polyflow tubing. It's about 3/16 diameter plastic tubing, and I snaked that down, and on my compressor, I had a long blowgun nozzle. It was about 2 foot long. Shoved that into it and slowly, hit it with air, and you could feel resistance coming back. But the longer I did it, I worked it slowly. I did blast all of that crap out, then threw water through it. End of story.
Yep. Well, the Caddy manual tells you to use a compressor into the hole.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a gutter around the sunroof. And they tell you to use no more than like 25 PSI or something. But when I went to this website I looked at, it's a Caddy forum. Somebody said, do not use a compressor, because he did. And there's the line is not continuous. It's connected. And what he did was when he used the compressor, it blew the connection apart.
Yeah, disconnected it, right.
You got to take the door off the car.
I believe that, yeah.
To get the line, to fix the line, because it goes down in where the door pillar is. And I'm like, okay.
It just goes to show you, as part of regular service, maybe once a year, especially if the car is parked where there's trees or things, once a year when you wash the car, open the sunroof and just blow it through just to see if there's to get any little crap.
I have that little piece of weed whacker line now in my toolbox.
There you go.
It became another tool.
Yep.
Rich, I was thinking of a step further. What about like a little screen or something to glue down, adhere to it at the hole opening? Because I'm sure it's just a basic hole.
Yeah, there's 4 holes. There's 4 of them, actually, one in each corner of this gutter. Mm-hmm. 2 go out the front and 2 go out the back, and only one of them was clogged.
Right.
So the rear ones, it's a little more difficult to get. The front one, because I have a double sunroof, but only the front half opens.
Right.
So the rear one was a lot more difficult to get to, but they didn't. They drained. I poured water into the gutter, and I saw them coming out in front of the rear wheels.
Good.
But the driver's side, it didn't come out. And once I put the weed whacker line down there, moved it up and down, twisted it around a couple of times, and whatever gunk was in there came out. And then somebody recommended putting a little bit of bleach in the water because it's organic material in there from the trees and stuff, and that helps kill it. But other than that, the only other thing I don't like about the car, the seats are, at least for me, I'm 6'1", and the seats are not all that comfortable compared to other cars. So and I had a friend who had the older model CTS. Right. 2008 was a design change, and he said, "Oh, my wife loved the car. I loved the car, except on long trips." He goes, "The seat was not great," and I agree. The seats, they're beautiful looking seats, but they're not all that comfortable.
Interesting to note.
Other than that, I like the car.
Excellent. Well, Rich, thanks so much for the input. We do appreciate it.
All right. Great. Thank you,
Rich.
Guys.
Talk to you soon.
We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 516-572-7440 is the phone number to get a hold of us right here at Motormouth Radio. And, of course, we're having trouble with our music. Let's try that. Yes, that doesn't work either. All right, let's do that.
So the aftermarket caddy radio you got there.
Yeah. It's a Blaupunk. Wow, this thing is really getting freaky. 516-572-7440. You know you can get this show on Performance Motorsports Network. You can also check it out on iHeartRadio, too, because those places really do appreciate what we're doing, and we really appreciate them for airing this fine, upstanding
They're
program.
really lonely, too.
They must be. That's Ray Guarino. I'm Chris Switzer. This is Motormouth Radio, where you can find us on VaughnLive.tv/Motormouth Radio, and you can also podcast us. Just go to the Motormouth Radio site, check it all out. Got a lot more coming up, you lucky dogs!
Quite frankly, there are better things to do with your time. Motormouth Radio on 90.3 FM, WHPC.
WHPC, Garden City, New York, the voice of Nassau Community College.
Join WHPC's Daily News Wrap-Up, weekdays at 4:30 p.m., bringing you a complete report of the day's news home and abroad, as well as sports, weather, and many other informative features.
We're Long Island's FM alternative.
Have a question about your car or someone else's car? Then give the Motormouths a call, 516-572-7440.
We're back. We're bad. This is Motormouth Radio. Icy, cool radio in the sun. That's what you're going to find right here. Plus a lot of automotive knowledge somewhere. It's around somewhere. We're still looking for it. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go back to the fun. Let's say hi. You're on with the Motormouths.
Hey, Motormouth. Michael Massano, reporting directly from the bilge of my boat. How are you?
Hi, Mike.
How's everything down in the bilge there, Mike?
My 254 is gleaming.
Nice.
Ooh, very good.
How many hours do you put on that thing a year, by the way?
Well, this one here is a refit. It's been out of the water the last couple of years, but believe me, when people look at this bilge, they call it a museum because it looks show quality now.
That's nice.
A quick question.
Yeah.
I poured in the tail end. You said something about a clicking noise in the rear on a goat.
Yes.
What's the problem?
He's got a GTO that when he drives, he has a clicking noise that he feels comes from the rear of the car somewhere. It's rotational, but it's not repetitive. He can't make it happen. It just happens by itself.
And it's an open rear. Okay. Now somebody swapped out the rear. We don't know if it's original Pontiac without the C clips or a GM rear with the C clips.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the origin, but I know it's an open rear. Yeah.
Because Chevrolet was the only one that used the C clips. The rest of them all used a bearing that was pressed on the axle.
Right.
But it's an open rear, you say.
Yes.
Now the only two things it could possibly be is you got a bad race somewhere, or you have a bad washer behind the spider.
Yeah, okay. That's the thing. We're gonna. He hasn't serviced it, so my thought was to pull the cover, drain the fluid. Let's take a look and see what's going on, and blah blah blah. Yeah, because the wheel bearings, like I said, usually the axle bearings will usually make a squeal or squeak when they go bad.
Well, it's just one of those things that just never gets better.
Yeah, well, it's almost what you have to do sometimes is wait for it to get worse so you can really identify it.
Very true.
Take it out at 5,500 out of the hole and launch it and see what breaks.
Yeah, there you go.
I like your thinking, Mike.
There you go.
Be good.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye. 516-572-7440. The theories are coming in here on the squeaky GTO rear, or wherever that squeak is coming from. 516-572-7440. How would you check? You say you pull the cover off the rear end. What would you now go and do? Now you're staring at gears, and where's the next step at that point, right?
Well, you look. Obviously, the fluid's going to drain out, and of course, you can spin the wheel and rotate the ring and pinion assembly, put the car in neutral.
What are you looking for? You're looking for movement, I'm assuming?
Well, there's always a certain amount. There has to be a little bit of play in there, or else the thing would lock up. So at this point, that's not the case because the car is, it's well seasoned.
Mm-hmm.
But you can look for anything that's, anything that's out of the ordinary. Like, like in that case, you could see if there was like a chip on a tooth, or you could see an abnormal wear pattern, or, then like Mike said, the next step is to release. You take there's a bolt. Was it a 5/16 bolt that locks in the center pin? You pull that pin out, then you can push the axle in, remove the C-clip, and you can pull. But now you got to take the the brake assembly. You got to get in there on that end of it. I mean, it's just another step to get in there.
I had a similar problem with the Electra when I had that Buick Electra. It would pull away. It would go wee, and once you got to a certain speed, like around 20 miles an hour, the noise would go away.
See, that I would say was definitively an axle bearing.
It wasn't.
Okay.
It was not. The drive shaft was a two-piece unit.
Oh, okay.
And it had the
carrier bearing.
That hub, right, the carrier bearing in the center. And I found out, basically, that hub has 4 springs that hold on to small little, well, they're actually not that small. It's almost the size of a small handball, metal ball. And those springs hold that ball intact.
Uh-huh.
And that whole carrier bearing had to be taken apart, and 2 of the springs had collapsed.
Okay.
So the carrier bearing was shifting back and forth, which was making that squeaking noise. But before I was able to get there, I had pulled the rear cover off the rear. And I found that there were these 2 spoon-shaped washers that fit on either side of 2 gears that I was able to get at. And I'm trying to remember how long. It's been a while. But I'm trying to remember. And those gears had a certain movement to them. These washers kept that movement, that play a lot less. But when I pulled the washer out, it was almost as thin as a piece of tinfoil.
That's a wave steel. Yeah, it's called a wave steel or wave washer.
I was able to go to a Buick dealership in Stamford, and I put the washer down, and the guy picked it up and said, "Let me see if I have this. I may."
Yeah, back then, yeah.
And he went, and in the bowels of his racks of parts, he was able to find it, and he came back, and he charged me, I think, 22 cents a piece for them. I bought both of them. But I'm just thinking the rear was a 68 Electra.
Right.
So just putting the years being the same year. Now
you have to go to a guy who rebuilds rears, or in my case, what I did give my rear end to a guy who was very reputable with rear ends, but we just went.
I know it looks great in that pair of pants you're wearing.
And mine is a posi, not an open like Kevin's. And what we did is just went for an aftermarket posi unit. Went for an Eaton True Track, Eaton, Richmond, companies that are well known in the industry for their products. We just went with that right out of the box.
You bolted right in?
Of course, it's made. Well, yeah, it's just a posi unit. And the ring and pinion was from another company. I think it is a Richmond ring and pinion. And then, of course, everything had to be set up. The pinion depth has to be set and all of that.
Right.
But
way too much trouble.
Well, that's what happens when you rebuild. You have to do that to rebuild it. Because if the depth is too deep, you're going to burn those gears out.
Yes.
And maybe lock them. If it's too shallow, you're going to chip teeth, and then you're going to side of the road with with a ring and pinion missing teeth. So it's not that big of a deal, really. If you're doing a rear end, especially out of the car or even in the car on a lift, it's not hard work at all. It's really not. And you chalk them, then you run the thing through, and you look at the chalk mark. You look at the witness mark of the ring gear on the pinion gear.
Right.
You want to see the depth, how much crossfit or interplay you get between the teeth.
Mesh,
another good word. Yes, yes. And then if it's good to go, you go. And I'm thinking too. I should. In my own car, I did my 500-mile oil change, and I'm thinking, you know what? I was going to do a rear end fluid change about the same time, but I'm going to let that one go a little further.
No, I don't blame you.
Because there is no combustion involved. It's just gear on gear. So I'm going to wait maybe 1,000 miles. I'll probably do it next spring. I'm approaching. I'm close to 1,000 miles now. But I'll probably wait till the spring to do that change, and and only because. like with any engine or any mechanical thing with his meshing parts,
yes,
the wear takes place in the beginning. That's where most of your wear takes place. So I expect to see metal particles and some, same thing with the transmission. I expect to see that.
Well, that's why in the old days there was something known as break-in oil, correct? It was very thin oil for...
Well, not for rear end, no, but for an engine, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll do that with the transmission and the rear end, and then that'll be the fill that'll last much longer.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree, but yeah, the wear happens in the beginning. But once you get that old oil out, you don't want those metal filings traveling through the rear end.
Well, the good thing is that they're small to begin with. If they're big, then there was a problem. They
Sure.
shouldn't be big. So they're small, and anything else, they become dust, really, because they get ground up, and they end up becoming like metal.
But doesn't that turn into pumice and start eating away slowly at things?
If you leave it in a long time, it'll just coagulate on the bottom into like a goo or like a mud. If you leave it in a long time, that's not going to happen. Not going to leave it that long. So yeah, Kevin, like I said, I was surprised he had never serviced the rear because he's a pretty cognizant guy where it comes to maintenance. So I'm surprised he never did that. But hey, whatever.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens.
Totally understandable. 516-572-7440. Speaking of a gelatinous mass, I checked the...
Does Rob here?
No.
I thought you saw him through the window for a minute.
No, he's not here. I checked the coolant system in the Honda today, and I noticed that my gelatinous mass has not come back. I'm very happy about it. I ran the car a little bit, backed it up, moved it forward, as much as I possibly can, and I don't see any white smoke anymore.
Good.
And I'm like, well, it's not good because I don't think these problems actually fix themselves. So I have an issue. I just have to dope out what the issue is.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that then. It was going to be good news, I guess.
No, well, other than the fact that there's no brown gook that's appearing once again in the fresh coolant system, because that's the problem. That's what I was having. It was literally turning into brown mud. Now, either it was one of two things. There's either a head gasket issue or the system was never flushed.
Yeah, cars do that. How did you drain the system? Did you use the petcock on a radiator?
Yes.
Okay. You changed the hoses, right?
Yes, I did.
When you changed the hoses, how did the inside, especially of that lower hose, look?
No, they looked fine.
Okay.
Because they were soft.
See, well, that's okay. Now, I'm not talking about the condition. The condition, they could be falling off. That's why you change them. But I would, look inside the hose and look inside the neck of the radiator. And if you saw the brown stuff there, now you know that it's throughout the system.
No, I did not.
It usually tends to land in the overflow bottom.
Yeah, it did.
Good. That's good.
It really did. There was not a lot that went through the system because, I did the old index finger in the hole trick and spooned out nothing.
Good. Well, that is good.
So I'm pleased, but it's still a little leery of this car because I don't know if I don't know if I have to Blue Devil it or not.
Well, the thing is, you're not driving it, so you're doing. It's kind of the weirdest kind of diagnostics. It's curbside diagnostics, and the car goes back to the curb. So you won't know anything until you put it through some paces.
Put it on the road. Well, I do know I do have to do the valve guide seals. I know I have to do that. That's got to get done. And once I do that, I'm hoping that I don't have to pull the head off this thing to do a head gasket. That's all.
Well, you can always kill two birds with one stone.
Do the head gasket, and while you have the valve. The head
then
off.
Use a spring compressor on the bench, and you have to worry about dropping valves into your engine.
Right.
There you go. Two birds, one stone, two fixes.
Well, if I drop a valve in the engine, then I'll do the head gasket.
All right. You can do it that way, too. Just that. See, in that way, you have to have the car parked somewhere where it can be for long term, in case something goes wrong. So, whatever.
Come on. In my world, we could lose cars. Are you kidding me? We can park them for years. It's not a problem. You need a car disappear? Park it in my backyard. No one will find it. 516-572-7440 is the phone number. That's Ray behind the shop bench. I'm Chris. Was still trying to dope out the squeaking noise in...
Clicking,
squeaking noise. Clicking.
Yeah. I want to mention something that Rich brought up before when he said he did some internet diagnostics for his struts.
Yes.
I did that as well recently. I went to the internet, which is...
You?
Yeah.
You.
I usually go to the internet for data or for factory service procedures, but this time I did go to generic sites. I Googled something and went to YouTube and looked at how other people did it because I felt it was applicable, and it was.
Right.
What I needed to do was remove the radio in my Mazda.
Okay.
And you look at it, it's like any late model car. There's no screws, nothing visible to show you how to do it.
Right.
So I wanted to see how to do it because I had to put a connector. I had to plug in a cable to the back of the radio. The jack is already there.
Oh, wow.
I purchased the cable via the internet. I went to Newegg and bought this cable.
Right.
And looked at the procedure. And a couple guys had YouTube videos. One of them was even, I guess, from the overseas because it was a right-hand drive car. And it showed me exactly what I want to know and really saved my life, potentially. There's a faux carbon fiber trim piece on top of the radio that runs the length from the driver's side over to the passenger side. And the temperature and all the readout display is in the middle of that.
In order to remove that faux piece, did you need the plastic pry bars that you very, very graciously gave a set to me?
I did use those, but one of the guys on actually watching the videos, because I watched a few, one guy used those, which I thought was very professional. Another guy used a screwdriver, which you could do.
Yeah, but you're going to leave a mark.
But the important part was they showed, and this is where the information was invaluable. There were 4 push-in connectors, and there were like male tabs on the back, or male connectors on the back of the panel that went into female spring plastic tabs set in the dash.
Got it.
And they told you, pull those 4 out first. Do not pull the far right side. And this is where it saves your bacon.
Wow.
Because the far right side is a slide type. So once you pull the 4 out, you pull it to the left. To install it, you push it in to the right and then push it in. So if you break that one, that's going to flap and then you need a new panel. So that was the invaluable part. And then, of course, the other part was really straightforward. There's just screws that hold the vents in and screws that hold the radio in. The whole thing slides out like a bread drawer. Oh, wow. Literally just, and it's a big radio in that car.
How does it slide out again?
It just slides right out. I just slid it out and laid it on the shifter.
Yeah, but what about the car? What about the radio?
Then I got back to the radio, and lo and behold, right around the back, just like I had expected, there was that block, the terminal block, and my cable, the connector slid right in, said thank you very much. Then it was a matter of snaking the cable through to put where I wanted to put it, and everything just went back in the order of the reverse order. And it was,
wow!
But I did go to the internet for that, and I thought that was a time to do that.
And I agree with you. Those are the little nuances that are such time savers, and I really do think that the internet is invaluable for those things. Like we always talk about the tool that's invaluable, right? You always like bringing that up every other show.
Absolutely.
The tool that's invaluable, I still rely on the internet sometimes more than I'll rely on a hand tool or a power tool. 516-572-7440. There's your phone number. Get a hold of us right here at Motormouth Radio. You can watch us on vaughnlive.tv/Motormouth Radio. You can see which finger I'm pointing at. And the Motormouth Radio Honor Group of the Hour, drivers with dirty dashboards. And what's the matter with you people?
Yuck.
What is the problem? Get a cloth, wipe it down. But before you do, give yourself a pat on the back. Because you got a dirty dashboard. And you're part of the Motormouth Radio Honor Group of the Hour. You dirty dog.
Whether your car is fast or slow, we're your #1 radio show. Motormouth Radio, baby. Ow.
Tune in to Thunder Road for
Heart-stopping, band-stopping, hard-rocking, earth-shocking, booty-shaking, love-making, Viagra-taking, yes-we-making, legendary.
Join me, Kim Tracy, for the music of Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band on Thunder Road, Thursdays at 11 p.m. and Sundays at 1 p.m. on 90.3 WHPC, and streaming at ncc.edu/WHPC.
Your car not running right? Let the Motor Mouths help you out at 516-572-7440.
Ah, yes! Motormouth Radio. Remember that? The good radio program in the 2 that are on New York radio. We're the good one. That's Ray Guarino behind the shop bench. I'm Chris Switzer. 516-572-7440 is the phone number. We're going to the phones and going to the fun. And saying hi, you're on with the Motor Mouths.
I can't believe I got through! I can't believe I got through!
That's not going to get on the promo twice, you know.
Is this my longtime radio boopah?
Maybe, I don't know. You got to be careful agreeing to things you don't know the definition of. But I wanted to. I'm so happy that I can celebrate National Radio Day. Is that right?
That's correct.
That is correct.
good. I'm in good feng shui. But listen, I got a question if I can maybe try to stump you guys. What year was the first person arrested for speeding?
Probably the first year cars hit the road.
New York City was the place.
Oh, no, you know this.
The year was 1895. I think the man was a doctor, and he got nailed for 6 miles an hour. I think it was up Fifth Avenue.
Well, my history book says 1899. And he was doing 12. So, okay, fair enough from one book to the other.
Well, more years, more speed. Makes sense.
That ruins my second half because I was going to say, what is the speed limit on Lexington Avenue, in Manhattan? And
what is the speed limit?
I mean, in 1899, it was 8 miles an hour.
8 miles an hour.
I wonder what dictated that speed specifically.
There's another story where 2 cars were registered in the entire state of Ohio in 1895, and they both hit each other.
Well, who else could they hit? They would have to hit each other.
They struck each other.
They couldn't hit anybody else?
2 cars, the whole entire state of Ohio.
I guess there were a lot of car/horse or buggy accidents back then.
Probably, yes.
Into the 1900s.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's why they had a different speed limit for going around corners. It was 4 miles an hour in the turn.
Yeah.
That's because
you'd be safe out
there. That's because you'd
there.
fall out of the car. There was no seatbelt. You just tip right over. You'd be out the door. There was no door. There you have it.
All right, that's all I got for you guys. Hang in there.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ralph.
Bye-bye.
So long. All right, I have a great service announcement for what's going on this weekend.
Please.
It is the 8th annual Thunder on the Island Hot Rods and Race Car Show. It's at East Neck Auto Service, which is found at 89 Route 109 in West Babylon, New York. This is going to be the Cackle Fest that we've been attending for many years. The only place and the only time you can see and hear 4,000 horsepower record-setting race cars from Long Island and meet the legends who raced them. And we go out there. John Careccia runs the shop. Dennis Cretoni puts the whole thing on. It's this coming Sunday, the 23rd, from 10 to 4. We will be there.
Yes.
Their T-shirt sales support the Wounded Warrior Project. You can call East Neck at 631-321-7434 for more information. And you can see us. I'm going to be shouting out Christian because he usually gets there early. I'm going to have him save me a spot because I'm bringing my car, my hot rod down there.
You're going to bring your car.
Of course I am.
Nice.
Cruise it down there. Any excuse to put more miles on it.
I'm going to park across the street just like everybody else.
And I'll have him find me a spot by the bank there so that I can...
Well, that's good because I won't take I'll end up with the last spot. Because every time we go, you and I go, you always find the last spot in that whole mall across the street. And I always have to park all the way back. You just zip right in, like, boop, you find a spot, and it's always the last one. So that last spot will now be mine because you'll have your car in the show.
You got it.
Yes.
Well, I won't be in the show. I'll be in this spectator area by the bank. I'm just going to, I'll be with the overflow. But that's okay, because I'll be with good company. Hopefully I'll be sitting there with Christian in the coupe.
Yes, and the coupe. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go back to the one. Hi, you're on with the Motormouths.
Hey, it's Kev from Massapequa.
What's up, Kev? Love? How are you?
All right, I'm calling the last week. You're going to have the technical service thing that Ray was going to give, but you didn't get around to give it. Or if it was, I left the car early enough.
What was that?
It was a technical service thing that you did something that you saved yourself something.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, geez, yeah, that.
Kevin is correct. Kevin, thank you for producing this program.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you.
And that's a perfect example of what I said earlier in the show. If someone hears something on the show that they heard as a they listened to it at their leisure and it was weeks later, feel free to call in. Just make sure you can adequately describe what it was because we both looked at each other like, huh?
And also, Kevin, you've just exemplified our short attention span.
Exactly.
I do appreciate.
What was that?
Yeah. Okay, what happened was this. I was doing my 500-mile oil change on my Pontiac, and as you know from listening to the show, everything in the car is either new or been replaced or rebuilt. It's all been out and put back in again, so things are subject to shifting, as it were.
Right.
And as I was doing the oil change, one of the things we like to talk about on the show is look around and look at other things while the oil is draining.
Mm-hmm.
So, you look for things that are shiny, things for the things that are hangings, things that are wet that shouldn't be wet, dry that shouldn't be dry. And what I found was I looked at a lower control arm, and said, hey, that bolt should have a nut on it on the outside. Shouldn't it? And then I looked around the other side of the lower control arm, and the bolt, there was a nut that walked off. Now, all these had been torqued in when I put the parts in. Torqued them to 70 foot-pounds as manufacturer specified.
Wow.
The nut walked off, and the bolt had backed out of the control arm.
Wow.
But it backed out until it stopped on the header tube. So it couldn't fall out of the car because the header tube stopped it. So I said, okay, well, thank God I was going to go to Whitestone that night and put Joe in the car, and we could have all, perished in a fire of death. So I went and checked the other 3 lower control arm bolts, because there's 2 on either side, and all the nuts were there, but they were all hand loose.
Oh.
Wow. So I tightened them all up. And now with everything together and the wheels on, I couldn't get the torque wrench on it, but I got the big wrench on it and tightened them up. And that's when I found a sway bar link missing on half of the car, just loosened itself off. Now, the interesting thing was...
He doesn't tighten bolts like a girl. That's the interesting thing.
Well, the interesting thing... No, I torqued them to manufacturer's spec, which was very interesting. But the interesting thing was the car... I just driven it the day before out to Crab Meadow Beach and back on the highway, and it exhibited absolutely zero negative tendencies. It ran and drove like a champ. So I said, wow, So the next week, when I going to Whitestone again this past weekend, and I was tightening radiator hoses, I look under the car, and one of the saddles that mount the sway bar onto the chassis, one of those bolts was gone. Oh. So I had to redo it. And it just cements the thought that you have to do what's called a nut and bolt inspection on anything that's been built or changed, because things will loosen. I went to the back of the car and looked, and lo and behold, the upper control arms that have fully adjustable, there's a stud, like a long stud with an embossed hex nut in the middle of it. That's how you adjust the control arms for angle. But there's jam nuts that are 1 1/8 inches.
Oof. That's
3 out of 4 of them are loose.
I would check your garage for a gremlin.
Yeah, well, no, you know what it is?
These bolts just falling off it.
You know what it is? When you take something out for the first time, I've done this with motorcycles many times and with cars. Things do loosen. It seems like there's more of that happening. My wife was wondering, well, don't you have to do this every week? I said, no, you know what? I'll go over it again. I'll check it again. But I bet you that's going to be it. Usually once you get it the second time, sometimes the third time, that's usually the end of it. Then it stops.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the takeaway was, if you're going to change parts like that, always be diligent and look and do your nut and bolt inspections. Because
just look around.
Yeah, just look around, because that's how you find the stuff. But, take a wrench to it and just give it a snug. And even if you followed manufacturer's specs. And, Joe, we talked about this, and he said that's the beauty of an original car a lot of times. When they're built, that doesn't usually happen to cars that come off the assembly line. Why? Why with aftermarket stuff? We don't know. We both scratched our heads and said, hey, regardless.
Right. But, Kevin, thank you for bringing us on the right path. We do appreciate it, always.
You're very welcome. Enjoying the show, and have a great weekend, guys.
Thanks, Kev.
Thank you, my brother.
You
too.
Hey, come on down to the East Neck if you're free.
I live right around the corner.
Well, Sunday from 10 to 4. We're going to leave the show here at 1. We get out there usually by about 2.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd love to meet you.
Okay, because I know last week I was going to come, and I think last year you heard the roar.
Oh, right.
And I want to think that I thought it was it supposed to be last week because the rain it was canceled, or did I just get the times wrong?
No, this is August 23rd. It's next weekend.
Okay.
This coming weekend, yeah.
Well, let's see, between that and the Scottish games, which one do I want to go to?
Yeah, well.
Guys run around in a man skirt throwing a telephone pole.
No.
Wow, that sounds like fun.
There you go.
Look forward to seeing you Sunday, Kev.
You got it.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Kilts and a man pole. Frightening. But anyway, Ray, what do we have coming up on this fine, upstanding program we call Motormouth Radio?
Sunday we have the East Neck show. We're going there. They're not coming here. We're going there.
Yes, but there's something else that's coming up next week.
Next week?
Yes.
Well, let's see what the book says.
Well,
we have to go a following week.
Yes.
That's the Sunday after the one that hasn't happened yet.
Correct.
The 30th. Steve Linden's coming in.
Hey, the illustrious author.
People will forget about that by the time.
Investor extraordinaire.
Next week comes.
Steve Linden. It's always a good time when we get Steve in.
Yes.
Right? We're always very envious because he rubs shoulders with people we would like to rub shoulders with. Or elbows. Or anything like that.
Yeah.
Whatever he's rubbing. But it's always good to see Steve, and he's always going to be a wealth of, like he says, I think he says unnecessary information, but it's necessary to us. And we'll be talking to Steve on Sunday. And also, this Sunday, the East Neck Show, it's always a good time. The Cackle Fest is always a sight to behold. For Ray Guarino, I'm Chris Switzer. This is Motormouth Radio. And what is the best advice we always give?
Buy war bonds.
Don't follow us home. See ya.
Bye.